Sinclair Broadcast Group, connecting people with content everywhere.
Ahead on America This Week, election chaos. I'm talking with the man leading President Trump's legal battle into allegations of voter fraud, his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
The evidence is explosive. The evidence is explosive. It includes whistleblowers and people who have turned completely against the organizations.
And it's like a little mini reunion with some of my former colleagues.
I realize Joe Biden wants unity now that he's in power, and the Democrats who have been launching all these verbal assaults on all Republican voters over the past couple of years are like, yes, now's the time.
Megyn Kelly is here. I'm also talking with Bill O'Reilly.
Everybody knew they were in the tank for the Democrats and were trying to destroy Trump. Everybody knew that. My dog knows that.
And he helped oversee the 2000 recount in Florida. Don't miss my conversation with Republican strategist Alex Vogel. That and so much more right now on America This Week. Welcome to America This Week. The mainstream media has declared Joe Biden the projected president-elect after the AP called Pennsylvania for him last week. However, the Trump campaign is fighting back, saying the results haven't been certified. President Trump hasn't conceded, and ballots are still being counted and will likely be recounted in several states. Although the election was just days ago, gloating liberals are already pressuring right-leaning voters to get over it, even though for the last 4 years they shoved down America's throat the bogus impeachment, the Russia hoax, cancel culture, demonized Trump supporters, and on and on. They want the rest of the country to put on a smile and move on. Come on, man. It's just an election. Don't be a sore loser, they say. But hey, maybe they're right. I mean, things will mostly be the same, right? Aside from taxes going way up, a doubling of capital gains tax, regular rates going up, taxes, and more taxes. Aside from allowing our borders to, again, be flooded by anyone and everyone who wants to take an American job and not pay federal income tax. Aside from our bathrooms becoming unisex even in our schools, sure, everything will probably be just the same. Again, aside from every time some group feels aggrieved over anything, they can riot in our streets, break our storefront windows, and rampage through our Walmarts and Nike stores and clean them out and call it peaceful protests. Aside from having to watch every word we say, or we may be canceled for being racist or bigoted, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, or homophobic. Aside from watching celebrities and athletes kneeling and disrespecting the flag, our symbol of freedoms that thousands of our young men and women in the military have died protecting. Yeah, everything will probably be the same. Oh, and aside from gasoline and heating bills skyrocketing as we cave to environmentalists who hate cheap gas and electricity simply because it comes from the ground. And aside from not recalling the last time you worried about ISIS or North Korea. Aside from watching the journalists now suddenly refusing to hold the powerful accountable. Aside from watching the new president bow to AOC and the squad's latest socialist demands. Aside from no more historic peace deals in the Middle East, is he going to move the embassy back to Tel Aviv, asking for a friend? Aside from replacing a swamp drainer with a career politician. Aside from crying on TV being the new journalism. Aside from the entire energy industry being on the chopping block. Aside from rejoining the Paris Climate Accord that costs us more than any other country in the world while others pollute more than us. Aside from rejoining bad trade deals that crush American small businesses. Aside from putting America first, American businesses first, American consumers first, in fact, all Americans first, period. You know what? Maybe things will be the same around here. Aside from putting an end to letting every country on the face of the earth walk all over us and stop caving to every loser demanding we pick up the check for every BS, harebrained, liberal, snowflake idea. Yeah. Other than that, things should pretty much be the same around here. President Trump's personal attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, friend, also is leading the investigations into voter fraud and ballot counting. Mr. Mayor, Let's talk a little bit about what you have. I saw recently there's some sworn affidavits from what states. What are you looking at? Are you on to more than one state, and what do you think you have here?
Well, now we have filed in 2 states, and they're all supported by sworn affidavits and somewhere around 100 witnesses. The states of Pennsylvania and the state of Michigan. Similar, and then a couple of different allegations. The similar allegation is that Republicans were excluded, sometimes by force, from the process of counting the absentee and mail order ballots, even though both states require that before the ballot is counted and before the certifying data is eliminated, both parties have to observe it to make sure that there aren't problems. That was violated at least 625,000 times in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, and it was violated over 300,000 times in Detroit.
So the question is, and the question that the left keeps pushing back on, and not even the left anymore. Fox News is doing the same thing. They're saying the media is saying you don't have enough to overturn any states. What do you say to them?
It's sad. It really is. I mean, we tried to produce last night for Fox a woman who was there working for an independent employer, nothing to gain or lose, who watched 100,000 ballots brought in the middle of the night in Detroit. They appeared to be fraudulent ballots because they were brought in paper bags and cardboard boxes and not the usual receptacle for ballots. She was told that the ballots were brought up in cars with out-of-state license plates, and she heard people saying, "We got to catch up. We got to catch up. He'll be too far ahead in the morning." And then she hung around and listened, and they were all Biden ballots. She got a chance to observe some of them. Biden was the only name on the ballot. She's all ready to go on Fox last night.
Who is this?
She's under oath, sworn, and they wouldn't put her on.
Who is she, Mr. Mayor? I mean,
she's an employee of one of the companies that was doing the IT work. She's not the only one. In Detroit, we have a Democratic worker who got so disgusted with the cheating that was going on that she turned state's evidence, gave us an affidavit saying that since September 22nd, the party has been teaching her and training her on how to cheat, which included when people want help going into the polling place with them and showing them how to vote for Biden and Harris. If they turn in a mail order ballot or absentee ballot that isn't properly filled out, don't worry about it, just put it in anyway. If they're not registered to vote, go to the book and register them.
So I agree with you. There are a lot of voter irregularities. There are a lot of issues with ballots.
That's not irregularity. That's fraud.
All right. Well, so let me ask you this. You're a prosecutor. You're a former federal prosecutor. You're a lawyer. How do you think this will play out and should play out, and are they different?
Yeah, the only place they're going to play out are in the federal courts. About the only honest place we have left. And the federal courts are going to be shocked by what they hear. The evidence is explosive. The evidence is explosive. It includes whistleblowers and people who have turned completely against the organizations, including the Democrat Party, that were cheating. And what you're going to see in both Michigan and in Philadelphia is a common pattern that only had to be directed by the Democrat Party when you consider it was repeated in 8 other states. There are 10 states in which Democrats were ordered to exclude Republicans from the mail order ballot count. And it's interesting where they selected doing it. They selected doing it in the crooked Democratic cities.
Okay, sir. So here, how does it go down? So you have all these examples. You have sworn affidavits. You petition the state, the courts. I assume the Supreme Court within the state. Oh, you go to the federals. Okay, so you go to the feds, and now you're hoping it gets to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, our U.S. Supreme Court already ruled that those ballots were going to be valid once. Are you hoping that they take it up again?
They haven't ruled they'll be valid. They ruled that mail order ballots are valid if conducted in accordance with the rules of the state legislature. The rules of the state legislature say each ballot has to be examined. No ballots were examined. So they completely violated the rules of the state legislature and the Supreme Court's ruling. The Supreme Court didn't say any mail order ballot can be counted. It said mail order. We challenged the whole idea of mail order because it's our contention that it's inherently, like it was Justice Souter's, that it's inherently fraudulent. I think after this election, we're going to find out that it is inherently fraudulent. But in any event, Supreme Court ruled mail order ballots are okay, fine, as long as they're approved by the state legislature and the state legislature sets reasonable rules for them. Well, the legislatures in Pennsylvania and Michigan set rules. The key to the rule was Republican and the Democrat get to examine it in over 600,000 occasions in Pennsylvania and well over 300,000 occasions in Michigan. Republicans were completely excluded, in some cases physically removed, so they couldn't observe a single thing about the ballot. And then some independent observers, like people who work for software companies, observed massive counting of ballots with no concern about the envelope, just trying to get the ballots in as quickly as possible. And when they were able to see the ballots had only one name on it, Biden, not even downstate, even down ballot Democrats. That's evidence of fraud that overturns an election.
We did see a massive move from Trump to Biden after the voting closed, in-person voting closed, and the left will tell you that generally they vote massively by mail, and that's the reason for it.
And what they failed to tell you is that the exit polls showed that in those two states, Philadelphia and Michigan, Republicans were out voting Democrats in early voting.
All right. I'm going to leave it there. Rudy Giuliani, former mayor, also heading the fight for the Trump organization to overturn this couple of states and looking for that. Looking for that magic 2-7.
We're going to go on to 8 more states. 8 more.
Wow. Okay. We'll have you back again, sir. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
He served as legal counsel for the Bush-Cheney campaign during the presidential recount in Florida 20 years ago. So he knows a little bit about the process that's unfolding following this past election. Alex Vogel, thank you so much for joining us. So just I had Rudy Giuliani on just before you, and he went through some of the things, the sworn affidavits, petitioning of state legislatures in 2 states. He said we'll expand to maybe even 8 states. What do you think? You've been there, you've done that, you've been through the process. What do you think the odds are of getting these recounts? And then again, let's take it one step further, and the odds are of actually changing the electoral votes for one of the candidates.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. It makes me feel old to realize that Florida was 20 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that we're back in a conversation about recounts, but that's what happens with close elections. Here's how I think about this. There are obviously some states with mandatory recounts. Those will go forward. They should go forward. There are some states that are probably within the discretionary margin, and I would encourage the president and his team, if they think there's a reasonable chance there, to pursue those as well.
So Alex, I don't mean to cut you off, but here's the issue. We understand all the within the 1% or half of 1% margins that there'll be automatic recounts. We're talking about the ones that are outside of that extra area where it wouldn't automatically go to a recount. They're trying, the Trump administration, Rudy Giuliani, are trying to get a state legislature to decide that to recount. What are the odds of that happening?
I think they're very low. Historically, that doesn't happen. States have pre-existing recount procedures that are usually followed. Very unlikely that the state legislatures or others are going to step in and set up new recount standards now. The larger issue is at margins of 10, 20, 40,000 votes. While these states were incredibly close, they're all outside of what I and every...
Even with some of the irregularities that are popping up with a bunch of ballots being all filled out for one candidate, even with some of those things that they're alleging on the right, on the Trump campaign?
Those aren't really pursued effectively through a recount. The campaign can absolutely go to court and say, hey, there's a problem with the voter rolls, a bunch of dead people voted, there's problems with timing in terms of when the ballots were counted. All of those arguments if they have the evidence to support them, are potentially impactful. The question is whether they, whether they prevail factually, and then B, whether that represents a large enough universe to change any of the outcomes here.
Well, let me ask you that. A large enough universe, so they'll take it on a per ballot by ballot case, rather than if they see a lot of irregularities in a state, demand a recount through the courts? And you're saying rather than that, they'll go kind of what they were doing with you for a long time in 2000, looking at each ballot. Remember hanging chads and whatnot?
I do. Even if the campaign comes forward and shows that, I'm just using this as an example, says, hey, look, 2,000 people in a state of 4 million voters appear to have been deceased. That's not likely from a remedy perspective to have a court issue an entirely new election or recount. It could certainly knock out those votes. And then the question is, from a prosecutorial perspective, who did that and how do we punish them? But again, that won't change the outcome of any of those elections, given where the numbers are, in my opinion.
And Florida, just correct me, I remember going through, I just don't remember that Florida was a recount generated because the original, it fell within that limit of 1% or half of 1%, whatever Florida was at the time.
It did, and we were talking 500 some votes. And at the end, the legal decision that everyone focuses on wasn't deciding the election. It was simply telling the state that they could not do what the Gore team asked for, which was a selective count only in places that they believed favored them politically. You can't do a selective recount. It's ballot harvesting. And so it was a very narrow issue. I think people forget that. It's not like a court stepped in and said, we don't like the way the ballots looked. And it was very close, so we're going to have a whole new election.
Alex, I have only about a half a minute or so. Let's remind our audience, if people are saying on the left, saying President Trump should have conceded by now. But Al Gore in 2000 took 37 days before he made his concession speech, right?
He did, and the American people understood and respected the important issues at stake here, and we should absolutely be patient during this recount process, and then we'll see what happens with the court decision.
Final question: any state's going to flip, in your opinion? Just take a shot, take an opinion if you want. Any state's going to flip this time around?
It is certainly possible that any one of these states that's down below 10,000 votes, you could see a change. Again, hard to see that flipping the outcome even in one of those states, but certainly within the realm of the possible.
Alex Vogel, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance.
Mr. Biden has spent a lot of time calling for unity, but it definitely goes both ways. Check out this Twitter exchange between Megyn Kelly and California Congressman Ted Lieu. He says the president told immigrants like me should go back to their country. Then Congressman Lieu asked what would be fair and how he should feel. Megyn's response: he and Republican voters have a right to their anger, and that Biden needs to start the work on unity at home with AOC and the media. Megyn Kelly, my good friend, welcome back.
Hi, good to see you.
I'm blown away at how all of a sudden they want unity on the left when they've spent the last 4 years calling everyone who's a Trump supporter misogynist or homophobic or xenophobic or bigoted, or the list goes on and on. Your thoughts?
It reminds me of that scene in Goodfellas, you know the movie Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta is like stabbing the guy in the back of his trunk over and over and over. If like he stopped at the end and the guy was still hanging on to life and he's like, you know what, never mind, we're good, right? No hard feelings. Like, it's just lovely in theory. You know, I was saying the other day, like, I also want all the puppies and all the kittens to be adopted and world peace, but it's not going to happen. The country's extremely divided. Yes, in part because of what President Trump has said and done over the past 4 years, and also very much because of what the Democrats have said and done over the last 4 years. And I realize Joe Biden wants unity now that he's in power, and the Democrats who have been launching all these verbal assaults on all Republican voters over the past couple of years are like, yes, now's the time. But let's get real. When you tell 71 million Americans they're racists, bigots, homophobes, transphobes, and sexists year after year, and that you're going to make enemies lists of anybody who supported Trump, they're not really feeling unified with you. They're not going to get behind your agenda.
I want to get back to that enemies list in just a second, but I was, anecdotally, I was doing a hit with BBC, and the other guy it was he against right against left. I was on the right. Michael Moore, filmmaker Michael Moore, is on the left, and the host kept saying, "Well, Michael, would you be willing to reach across the aisle to the Trump supporters?" And he kept going at Trump supporters, generalizing all Trump supporters, saying that we are white supremacists. And I kept saying, I'm not white. I denounce white supremacy. Why is it because I like lower taxes? I like the guy in the office. They can't get over it. they just can't get over it. I mean, how much more disgusting, how much more evil can you be to claim someone, a group, is a white supremacist just because they support a guy they don't like?
I don't even think people really should get upset about it anymore. I mean, this is like these far lefties, and I don't include progressives, normal liberals in that, though most of whom are my friends. Virtually all my friends are liberals. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. But the leftists, capital L, they think you're a white supremacist if you're white. If you read Robin DiAngelo's, White Fragility, it's basically, if you have white skin, it's a problem that you'll never get over, and the only thing you can do is just try to be less white. So that's who you're dealing with, right? Like, you cannot listen to these people call names anymore. But I think the average American still gets very jarred when they hear these nasty terms, which are meant to silence you. And the only real choice you have is to stand up and not be silenced, and not think you have to unify with the people who have been calling you the awful things and trying to shut you up. I was saying on my show the other day, my podcast, maybe now's not the time for unity. Maybe now's the time for liberty, for fighting to maintain your right to think what you want, to say what you want, to do what you want, to uphold the ideals that are important to you.
I think you're right. And I think there shouldn't be a time. It should be overwhelming. It should be all the time. Megyn, Jake Tapper put up a screen this week showing the senators who had not congratulated presumptive President-elect Joe Biden yet. That seems gross. That doesn't even seem like journalism to me.
I think it's funny. Single tear. No one called to say congratulate. I mean, come on. Is it slow news week? It must be, because they're doing nighttime stories on a couple of tweets I've sent out. Like, they don't have anything to talk about. The election's over. They're trying to keep their viewers reeled in. Once again, they should be thanking Trump for keeping at least one storyline going. No one cares who's called to congratulate. No one. Maybe people on CNN do. I don't think any normal person cares about that. The election hasn't been certified yet. They don't have to call anybody. Al Gore kept it going for a month and a half. Once it's been certified, you can have all the congratulations calls you want. Then we'll talk. But right now, there's still a contest. Trump's entitled to play this out the way he wants, and he's got some lawsuits pending. Let's see what happens after those are resolved.
Well, let's talk about that. You brought it up, the Trump Accountability Project. There's a group that says if you've ever worked for Trump, you shouldn't be able to earn a paycheck in D.C. anymore. Your thoughts on some of that?
Here's what I think that's insane. Okay. By the way, the Associated Press has just come out with a memo saying you can't say insane or crazy anymore or nuts because you're a bigot. I guess if you don't like people with mental, whatever. It's insane. Okay, it's insane. But it's even more insane than it first looks, because it's not just people who worked in the Trump administration. It's any, quote, enabler. So guess what that means? The voters. People who supported President Trump. Even, my imaginary viewer in Iowa, Madge, she's an enabler. And she's going to get on their list. And they're threatening people's jobs. They're going to try to stop corporate America from hiring you if you've been dubbed a Trump enabler. And there was one guy who's part of the project who sent a direct message to any publishing house, just as one example, that if you publish a book by a Trump supporter, enabler, or someone who worked in the administration, not only will they boycott that book, they're going to boycott every book in the publisher's library. And at the same time, unity. A nation healed. Well,
yeah, isn't that like kind of the same thing as racism? If you group a whole group of people the same way, that'd be racist or whatever-ist. They're doing the same thing. If you're a Trump reporter, go ahead.
Try to silence you, right?
Yeah.
They don't. Maybe they are just that vindictive to try to stop Madge from getting a job, okay, or a book deal. Maybe they are, but I actually think what they're trying to do is they see those numbers, 71 million, 74 million, the country split right down the middle, and they're trying to find an effective way to scare that 71 million into silence. As it's not even just about Trump anymore. It's about what you stand for. Do you want Joe Biden to reintroduce critical race theory mandatory sessions in your federal agencies, DHS and Treasury and elsewhere, where you're told you just have to sit in the silence of your racism if you're white and just let somebody berate you? That's the crazy cancel culture that the, again, established left is pushing, is worth fighting against. And sane people on the left and the right are uniting around this. And I think the Democrats are going to have to come to understand that if they continue to push all that woke BS that I think helped cost them the House, the seats they wanted in the House, cost them the Senate, and cost them down ballot, they're going to be in for a whole lot more world of hurt. No one responds well to you're going on a list.
Just about 30 seconds or so, and I notice, feel free not to weigh in on this if you don't want to, it just blew me away. Cavuto over at Fox News the other day cut off a press conference by Kayleigh McEnany from the White House briefing room. Blew me away, just blew my mind, because are journalists now deciding what American people can hear as news from the briefing room in the White House, and should they?
No, I was shocked by that, and I thought it was really out of line. Sorry, Neil, but I thought it was really out of line. You don't get to shut up the president or the White House press secretary because you think what she's saying is untrue. Imagine if we had done that during the Obama years, as he was out there saying, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, which was a lie, and he knew it was a lie when he was saying it, and so did we. But we let him say it, and then we would try to correct it after the fact. That's what a journalist is supposed to do. Neil Cavuto is not my daddy. I can handle hearing the words, then he can tell me what he thinks is actually true, then I can make up my own mind. That's how it was supposed to be. We report, you decide. That's what needs to happen. All
right, Megyn, always appreciate your time. Always good having you on. Again, the Megyn Kelly podcast is right up there, top. I don't know, last time I checked, you were number 7 in the world. That's fantastic. Megyn Kelly, all the success in the world. Wish to you.
Thank you, my friend.
Coming up, he's a familiar name. Don't go anywhere. My conversation with Bill O'Reilly is next.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
Illegal vote.
Well, I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this.
Well, that was Fox News' Neil Cavuto cutting into a press conference with White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany earlier this week. And Fox has continued to get heat from its conservative audience for calling Arizona so quickly in the election. Just some food for thought for this week's The Interview. I'm joined by host of No Spin News, who also recently released a new book, Killing Crazy Horse, and good friend of mine, Bill O'Reilly. Bill, we'll get to the book in a second, but what's going on? Fox is having a hard time with some viewers lately. It looks like CNN, I believe, beat them for the first time in a couple of weeks. Some news organizations like OAN and Newsmax are claiming that they've had their best 2 weeks in their history. What do you think?
Well, BillO'Reilly.com, we've gotten about 5,000 new subscribers in the last couple of weeks. So something's going on. I think and I want to be fair here. You and I both worked at Fox News. I had a generally good experience, but when management changed at the end, then that always happens. When you get new people in, they do things a different way, and I'm happy where I am right now. But in the cable news world, you are making money by polarizing Americans, all right? That's how you make money. So FNC makes money by loving Trump, and CNN and MSNBC make money by hating him. What happens when you do that is when there's a change in circumstance, so Donald Trump is going to leave the stage, most likely in January.
But hey, can I just stop you for a second? This whole bleeding of, I guess, Trump viewers and lovers of Trump or whomever from Fox, their viewers, started with that early call in Arizona. I mean, look, I agree with you but they called, Bill, they called that race while there were still Arizonans in line waiting to vote.
There's a reason they did that, Bolling, and that's what I was trying to get to, all right? So the hierarchy that runs Fox News, they thought that Biden would win. Okay, so they're adjusting now their programming methods, all right, so that Biden doesn't ice them, which he will anyway. I mean, no matter what FNC does, they're going to be on the outs. But the message went out, and not to the primetime players, Carlson and Hannity and Laura. They stayed pretty much the same. But the staff, they said, look, you know, we got to ease up on bashing Biden. Now, I think they made a terrible mistake calling Arizona. Today, Arizona's still in the zone where it could flip to Trump. Yeah. It's still there. So I think they made a terrible mistake. But there's management, you know, Bolling, you're not little Bo Peep. I mean, management tells people what to do.
Yeah, well, I will go in good conscience on television right now. Look at my audience. They've never told me what to do, what to say, or what to ask. I'm pretty sure they didn't do that with you.
Well, you're a lucky guy.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other networks. MSNBC, pardon me, has Joy Reid over there saying that she believes 538 was the number of votes that it took to flip Florida in favor of George Bush in 2000. Meanwhile, you and I and the rest of the world know 538 are the number of electoral votes, which represent 435 in the House, 100 senators, and 3 for D.C. This is a primetime host.
Yeah, I know, but what do you expect from these people?
More.
Look, I got to say, I don't. I think that NBC News and CNN and the other networks are going to collapse in the next year almost entirely. I don't know what's going to happen to Fox News. I don't know. It's going to be hard when Trump leaves the stage for them. But the others, they don't have any credibility, Bolling. Everybody knew they were in the tank for the Democrats and were trying to destroy Trump. Everybody knew that. My dog knows that, okay? And so what are you now going to be fair? Now you're going to tell the truth after 4 years of propaganda? It's over.
I remember when President Obama won for the first time. I was at Fox, and there were a lot of long faces over there. We were like, what are we going to do? And for about 6 months, our ratings, the network ratings, remember, they tanked. They were down. They were down substantially. Within a year, though, they were back up because we were charged with keeping accountability to the Democrat president, keeping his feet to the fire. Will Joe Biden, if he is in fact president, will he be held to the same standards that President Trump was by MSNBC and CNN?
Is this a trick question?
No. I want Bill O'Reilly's brilliance on this.
Whatever Bolling, whatever Biden does is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened. Whatever he does. I don't think Biden's going to do anything. You're never going to see him. He's not going to hold many press conferences. He's not going to be around. But whatever he does, whatever executive order comes out of there, it's going to be the greatest thing of all time. Come on, you know that. It's just propaganda USA. That's what we're dealing with. But here's something interesting.
Go ahead.
Biden's not the most powerful man in the country. Mitch McConnell is.
Yeah.
Because the Senate's going to be Republican. And McConnell's going to be able to block every nutty, far-left progressive thing that's introduced. McConnell is the most powerful man in America.
All right, Mr. Bill O'Reilly, we're going to leave it there. Again, that book that you have out on the New York Times bestseller list, I believe 10 weeks now, Killing Crazy Horse. Bill O'Reilly, everyone, this man writes great books. I read that book. I love it. But I'm looking forward to, can you announce the name of the new book real quick?
Yeah, May 4th, we're coming out with Killing the Mob, the assault on organized crime in America.
That's the one I'm looking forward to.
It's the most controversial. This will be number 10. This is the most controversial killing book. But the reason it's out so fast is because of Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse sold so many copies so quickly that the publisher said, ooh, we got to get the Killing the Mob
Bill,
out.
I got to go. So I'm just hoping maybe 12 or 13 Killing Bolling. I'm looking forward to that very, very aggressively. It's Bill O'Reilly, everybody. Ahead on America This Week, our all-star panel tackles the big topics and controversies following the presidential election. But first, the calls have been pouring in by the hundreds this week, as you might imagine. And we're listening, and we hear you. 888-601-0032, toll free. People are angry and frustrated. Take a listen to just a few.
Hi, Eric. It's Myra from Dayton. I remember when Election Day was Election Day. And now it's been diluted away, and in its place, corruption.
You know, listen to Biden's speech tonight, and while it's great words, you know, I just don't trust the Democrats. You know, twice under Democrat presidencies, my right to be secure in my person, my right to due process, my right to equal protection under the law have been violated.
Hey, Eric, I supported President Trump. The only thing I can think about being good about Biden winning, that the people who voted for him and all his zombies following him around will end up suffering like the rest of us.
Here's that number again, 888-601-0032. Right now, it's more important than ever for you to be heard. Follow me on Twitter at Eric Bolling, and we will make sure they hear you too.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, Americans. United we stand. We stand, Americans. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, Americans. United we stand. We stand, Americans strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand Americans. United we stand. We stand Americans. United we stand.
There are some questions about the timing of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine announcement that sent stocks soaring this past week. Senator Ted Cruz tweeted, quote, why didn't Pfizer announce their vaccine until 48 hours literally after the networks called the race for Biden? Didn't they know last week? Well, let's debate that, hearing from both sides of the aisle here. Welcome back to our panel, Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross, host of the Armstrong Williams Show. Armstrong Williams, member of the President's National Security Education Board, host of America First on Salem Radio, and Sinclair Media contributor Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and University of Maryland lecturer Dr. Jason Nichols. Now, I know what's going to happen. We're going to do this segment in Media Matters and say, oh, my God, conspiracy theory. But, you know, Sebastian, it is just odd. 48 hours after the announcement that Biden is the presumptive, what am I calling him? Presumptive president-elect. Pfizer comes out with this vaccine. Thoughts?
Look, Eric, I love conspiracy theories. I have bookshelves full of them, but there's a reason they're called conspiracy theories and not conspiracy facts. However, you don't wake up one morning and say, hey, we've got a vaccine. How did that happen? So the idea that they didn't know this before the election is, of course, garbage. They've been working on this for months and months and months, millions, if not billions of dollars spent. They knew the vaccine was ready. It was a political decision not to announce it before the election, and that is transparent.
God help them if that is true, Armstrong. If they had any idea of this and they waited until after an election, a lot of people could have been saved. A lot of people may not have died or been sick. Your thoughts, Armstrong?
Well, you know, the White House was very much involved in Pfizer and these other drug companies, which the president often mentioned when he talked about the COVID-19 with his coronavirus task force. And so there is no question, I agree with Sebastian, that they knew. But even when they tried to take the credit away from the president, Pfizer's executive stepped in and said, no, we work round the clock with this White House and the president's task force, and this would not have been possible without them. So I don't want to say that they were trying to weigh the elections one way or the other. Sometimes we don't always understand the timing of how this works. It worked. You can say Biden may have jumped on it and say I'm taking credit for it now, but I think we are just true. We're so caught up in trying to read something, and every little thing that happens that they had to be weighing on the side of Biden and the elections and they were against the president. I'm not willing to take it that far. It happened when it happened. I'm just happy to know that they have a vaccine, 90% of it is working, and maybe this will move America forward to finally get on a grip on this virus that's taken too many lives.
Misha, what do you think of this whole debate over the timing of Pfizer's announcement of their vaccine?
I think that the debate itself is laughable because what we know about Pfizer is that $445 million was given to them from Germany to undertake this process. Pfizer is going by all the rules and regulations of approval, which meant that they had to have so many people who not only tested positive, but those who they could prove were getting better or that this vaccine would actually be able to have prevention. And those metrics were not designed in accordance with this presidential election cycle. It just so happens that they had enough people. Again, this is after multiple trials that the announcement came when it did. This isn't something that was cooked up in some dark room, and it isn't something that should be spread as a conspiracy theory. There are scientific methods that they went through. The process is available. They've been open and honest about it from start to finish. And it's very interesting to me that conservatives now are just assuming because of the proximity to the election that there is some type of hanky going on. It quite frankly isn't. And it's disturbing that this is a last-ditch effort, again, to dismantle faith in systems.
All right. Hey, Jason, one of the other things that was really kind of odd to me, and I'm a viewer, I watch television across the platform, I watch left, right, and center, was odd to me. A couple of things were happening. Immediately after presumptive President-elect Joe Biden was announced, there was massive celebrations in the street outside the White House, all over the place. There was no social distancing going on whatsoever. And my problem isn't that. I get it. People want to celebrate. I get that. But the mainstream media had no problem with what was going on in the streets of D.C. and still, to this day, continues to go on in D.C. What? COVID was cured on November 3rd?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think if you're comparing it to some of the president's super spreader events, it was the fact that people weren't wearing masks. It wasn't necessarily just the social distancing aspect. This is why, of course, in restaurants we have to social distance because of the fact that we can't wear masks.
You're contradicting yourself, Jason. You said it's all about masks. That's why you call Trump's rally super spreader events. It was only about the masks because they weren't wearing masks. So therefore, You know, Biden is disagreeing with what you just said. It's about social distancing and the mask. Those celebrants weren't social distancing, and they could be considered super spreader events.
Eric, here's the thing, and I just first want to say I got caught in traffic trying to go somewhere during one of those spontaneous celebrations, so I'm not so happy with it either. But let me just say, Biden is correct in the sense that under the best circumstances, you have social distancing and masks, but masks are extremely important. And there are certain situations where, with the president's events, where people weren't wearing masks. That was the big issue that the media was going after. Even the events at the White House where people weren't wearing masks, and now you have people like Ben Carson who are still getting infected.
Listen, I'm not arguing the efficacy. I'm not arguing the efficacy of masks. I've been wearing a mask a year prior to COVID ever hit the shores here in America on flights. Armstrong, I only have about a minute left. Another thing that I noticed: MSNBC and CNN both pulled their total number of people who've been cases of COVID and people who have died from COVID off their screen for the better part of a week. That seemed hypocritical.
Well, it is, and there's no question there is a double standard. And in the 45 seconds I have left, let me just tell you, my brother, Dr. Carson, and it hasn't even been announced that his wife also tested positive. And let me tell you, some of the things that he has described with this COVID-19, it is very serious. Whether it's wearing masks, social distancing, we need to take it serious because it is no joke with this COVID-19. And you can have all the best therapeutics in the world, but your body has to react to it and you have to recover. So we all need to be careful and cautious and not get caught up in the media's game, but realize that this virus can be deadly.
We will leave it right there, panel. Always, always great having you on. Thank you. Each week, we honor first responders who died in the line of duty protecting our great country. Officer Marshall Waters, Jr. with the Mangum, Louisiana Police Department died last week, 3 weeks after he was shot during a traffic stop. Officer Waters served as a part-time police officer and was also a full-time EMT for the Northeast Louisiana Ambulance Service. Detective Corporal Dan Abramovitz with the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office in Kansas was killed on duty in a car wreck on October 30th. He served with the Sheriff's Office for 26 years and leaves behind his wife, 3 children, and a grandson. Rest in peace, officers.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. While President Trump continues to challenge the results of the election, does projected President-elect Biden possess a mandate Sinclair National correspondent James Rosen dives into that question.
What is our mandate?
In posing the question, President-elect Biden assumed he has a mandate. Generally, the winners of landslides enter office with greater power to enact policy than the winners of close contests. Then again, Mr. Biden, by current tallies, attracted 74 million votes, more than any nominee in history.
Americans have called upon us to marshal the forces of decency, the forces of hope, in the great battles of our time. The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health care, the battle to achieve racial justice.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the likely majority leader if Democrats win a pair of Senate runoff elections in Georgia, suggested a mandate is contingent on control of Congress, and that if one exists, it belongs to a party, not just a president.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
But I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
Some historians say talk of mandates grew more prominent in the rhetoric of presidents-elect as mass media became more powerful in the political landscape. Such talk satisfied the media's growing appetite for content. But analysts also caution voters to discern when the media declare a mandate that may be different from, or even at odds with, the meaning of an election as understood by the voters or the victorious politician. Julia Azari is the Director of Graduate Studies in Political Science at Marquette University and author of Delivering the People's Message, The Changing Politics of the Presidential Mandate.
There's a reason we search for meaning, and that has a kind of democratic value for us to talk about what an election means and what the popular will might be. And on the other hand, a lot of really powerful people have every incentive to try and shape that for their own reasons.
Azari suggested that if the Republicans retain control of the Senate and the Biden White House is stymied in pursuing legislation, the administration will invoke a mandate to justify sweeping executive action.
James, mandate. I'm getting hung up on this. I know what it means. I know it's the desire to feel like you've been given the power to do what you want to do. But given the fact that we had heard that there was going to be a blue wave, if there were a blue wave, all the power to President-elect Biden, it's a mandate. They lost seats in the House. They're not going to win the Senate. How is that possibly a mandate?
Well, the results of those Senate runoff races remain for us to see what they are. And a mandate is what you can make of it. A mandate is what you can proclaim and get away with enacting. Nonetheless, I think you raise a valuable point, which is that in both houses of Congress, we're going to see very slender majorities, and it's going to be difficult for Mr. Biden to pursue a legislative agenda. But just getting what you want out of Congress isn't the only way you can manifest a mandate. And as we noted at the end of our story just now, that could come through executive action.
You know, one of the other things that would kind of, at least for me, push back on President-elect Biden, think he's been mandated to go change a bunch of things that he's talking about changing, is the fact that the progressive wing of the Democrat Party is pretty upset right now. They feel that they've been blamed for some of the losses in the House and whatnot, and they're concerned, AOC example, Bernie Sanders, another one, they're concerned that they may not be part of the next agenda of President-elect Biden, or President Biden when he's president.
That's right, and I think that this is a fairly common tug of wills that we see within either party whenever their nominee captures the White House, is what is the soul of this party? What were we sent here to do? It's not just about who's president, it's about who he has around him. So the progressive wing of the Democrats are demanding representation in staffing and also in the legislative agenda. But again, the question is, what were they sent there to do? And what is the appetite of the American people and their representatives in Congress?
You know, I guess the question is if Biden does feel like he has been given a mandate, what are some of the things he wants to unravel from the Trump administration right off the bat?
One thing I think that the next President-elect Biden, has to be aware of is appearing as though his sole agenda, or his mandate, if you will, is to resurrect the Obama presidency. Because right now, almost everything he's talking about doing and some of the specific personnel he's talking about nominating carry that image or project that image. So, for example, on the foreign affairs stage, he wants to re-enroll the United States in the Iran nuclear deal. He wants to re-enroll the United States in the Paris Climate Accord. On the domestic front, he wants to resurrect Obamacare. So I think Joe Biden has to be wary of appearing to present the image that all he really wants to do is turn back the clock. His slogan was Build Back Better. He's got to make sure that he is seen adapting to the modern age and not the problems of 10 years ago.
I'll tell you what, there's one guy around town that thinks that that mandate is a little bit premature, calling that mandate. That would be Donald Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the current president. Thank you so much for your time, James Rosen.
Thank you, Eric.
Never miss an episode of America This Week. Just set your DVR. We have a complete list of times and cities on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/America Bowling. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can find our current key interviews posted there, along with past ones.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand America. United we stand. We stand America. United we stand.
You can watch America This Week wherever you are and wherever you go. Just download the Stir app to your smartphone, Roku, Apple TV, and other devices, and start getting 100% free TV. America This Week airs every Sunday at 9 a.m. and again at midnight on your local Stir City channel. That's Channel 1. That puts every show at your fingertips. Again, 100% free. I keep saying it, I know, but 2020 really outdid itself again this past week. It's like you think the year can't get any worse, and then 2020 goes, hold my corona. It's one for the history books, that's for sure. Before I go, on a more serious note, I want to extend my gratitude to our servicemen and women and their families. This week we saw Veterans Day, and the United States Marine Corps also celebrated its 245th birthday, and we appreciate and honor the sacrifices our vets make each and every day to keep us safe and their families. Thank you for your service. Semper Fi, and God bless. Have a great night, everybody.
Order!